Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We hope you're keeping very, very safe and well. Thank you very so much for joining us as we provide to you a preview ahead of Brighton to come on Saturday. Quite frankly, with Tottenham, anything can literally happen. During this show, of course, we'll be discussing the announcement that was broke on Wednesday as we are now, of course, with relation to the season ticket prices being frozen by Tottenham. We're going to get the reaction of the panel to that. We'll be discussing Stellini's management, one game in, whether you feel he should last the end of the season. We're already questioning that as Spurs fans. Can't blame us at all, giving us that display up at Goodison Park. And then we'll be turning our mind to Brighton to come, as we said at the weekend, a huge, huge game for Tottenham as they try and, as Stellini says, have 9 cup finals left to win. No pressure. The word cup final and Tottenham definitely doesn't go together. Joining us on our panel tonight, back on the show, we've got Blues' very own Antony Costa's back. Ant, how are you? Love to be back on Last Word on Spurs.
I love to be back on, Rick. Good to see John as well. I ain't seen John for a minute there, so it's good to see you, mate. Great to be back and look forward to getting into all things Tottenham. I'm sure we've got a few things to discuss.
Yeah, just a few. Never a quiet world in Tottenham folklore, the way it's going. Back on the show, I'd like to have him back alongside us. We've got John over at Lilywhite Rose. I think we've got John twice in a week coming up. We're looking forward to that. John, how are you? Love to have you back on. You well? John is being silenced. We're going to try and unmute John. We're trying to give it a go. John might have to unmute from his end. This could be a long show, depending on how long this takes us to unmute John. We've got him. No, we haven't. We've got him.
Right, how are we doing? Apologies. Pleasure to be back on. Absolute pleasure to be back on.
To be back on as well, mate.
I don't know what was going on there. Sorry about that. Slow start like Tottenham. But pleasure to be back on. Lots to talk about tonight. We've had the season tickets. We've had, that performance at Everton. I think there's quite a lot of disappointed fans who are looking for an uplift in a change of manager, and we really haven't seen that. So lots to get into.
And mate, delighted to have you back on Last Word on Spurs. And also joining us, showing us what a real Tottenham performance looks like at the moment. For those that are watching on YouTube, this is what it is like watching Tottenham over 90 minutes. Not sure where it's going to lead you, not sure where it's going to take you, but they may eventually show up, or they might not, or they're in the dark. We've got the wonderful, this man makes it happen. We've got the wonderful John Wobble back on Last Word on Spurs as he enters the car. John, we've got you, my man.
Sorry about
How are
that.
you?
My daughter's just had a baby, so...
Oh, congrats.
It's been holding the baby for the last hour and a half.
Oh, bless you.
She's lovely, so...
John, not literally this second, right? Or just this second? Just this second, John?
No, not just this second. Earlier today. So, another Aries. All my band are Aries and all that. But, no, a geezer's there. He seems to have taken it to a duck like water. He was the nervous father, prancing up and down the waiting room all last night. But yeah, he seems to take it like duck to water, the geezer. So all good.
Bless him.
And he's not a Tottenham fan. He's not a Tottenham fan, so that was lovely. Good for him.
There you go. Not a lifetime of too much hurt. Well, listen, mate, on behalf of us all,
Congrats,
massive congratulations to you. Lots of love already pouring in for you, John, on behalf of all of us. Well, guys, in the nature of Tottenham, it's never a quiet world. A lot to get into on this show. We were going to start with the management of Cristian Stellini on the back of that game at Everton on Monday night. But given the nature of Spurs that continue to provide us with news pretty much 24/7, I think we'll start with what the headline topic is at the moment, and that is Tottenham deciding to freeze season ticket prices for the 2023-2024 season. And that decision will come as a welcome news to supporters, as clubs such as Man United and Arsenal have already elected to increase their prices for the next campaign. John, let's start with you, your reaction. I know you're getting ready to give a massive, well, I don't know what you're going to call it, some massive launch to the board tonight if they weren't going to make a decision before today. They have done. Give me your initial reaction, John, to Spurs announcing that freeze in season ticket prices.
Yeah, hugely.
And that's the John Wenham, but I should say, sorry, that's John Wenham. I'll say Jar and John just to make it easy. We'll come on to John on that first.
Yeah, hugely surprised and positively surprised because we'd seen the report from Matt Law last week saying that Tottenham were considering a sizable increase to already the most expensive season tickets in the Premier League, possibly in Europe. So I was obviously delighted that Tottenham have gone back on any thoughts they had about upping the prices, because that would have been plainly unacceptable, and that would have been a tipping point for many fans that have remained on the fence so far in terms of the ownership of the club. So I think the club had to freeze the prices. There was no way they could tangibly up the prices of already very, very expensive tickets. So I'm pleased they've decided to do that. Huge credit to the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust for the work they do behind the scenes in ensuring that us match-going fans do get, to support the club and are not priced out in a way. So I was pleased with that. Just on season tickets though, Ricky, I think it comes to a bigger question now of what are the actual benefits of being a Tottenham Hotspur season ticket holder. Okay, so unless you are in the top, say, 2,000 to 2,500 loyalty point holders, you will not get away tickets. They get taken up by the fans with the highest loyalty points each season, and it's a kind of closed shop as to those fans getting the tickets. So others pay their money, and you pay it all up front in one go. I know the club do have some sort of finance option as well, but the idea is that you pay it up front in advance. What benefit do you get? As I said, you don't get away tickets. You're never going to get into that select group that do have the allocation of away tickets. So you're just paying up front, and tickets you can get for almost every game on the ticket exchange. I know, and you told me this season you've had no problem even for the likes of Arsenal and other big games of just getting tickets on ticket exchange as a member. So I'm starting to question what the benefit is. You just give the club all your money up front. What do we see in return for that? What tangible benefits do we get as season ticket holders? They're going to ask me to pay 1,200, 1,300 up front, but what are we actually seeing from that? I don't know if it's actually worthwhile. I need more. Being a season ticket holder, I understand in the past you could sit with a group of mates and that sort of thing in the old stadium. That's been really diluted with the move to the new stadium. That doesn't really happen anymore. So I just wonder if many, despite the price not increasing, will bother to renew next year when they can get tickets just as easily being a member.
It's an interesting point you make there, John. It is because, naturally the situation at Spurs, and I think it's, very well, again, out there, is that at the moment, you go onto the exchange. It's very, very, very easy to get a ticket if you are a member at the moment. You can't get away from that. You look at Brighton to come this weekend. I'm sure many are going to be going to maybe vent their frustration at the nature of where the football club is right now. Of course, look, we'll go there, we'll support the team. And I'm sure throughout that period, as in what we saw at Everton, there will be elements to that game where people want to make their feelings known. There's no doubt about it. Spurs, look, a season ticket when you've not won a trophy in 15 years and already among the most expensive in the country. There was widespread reports. We can't get away from the fact that the club were looking to potentially have an increase, a price hike, which, to be fair, had they done that, I dread to think what the feeling would have been even more so given the nature of just how much they are under pressure at the moment. And to come over to you, this does mark the second year running in which season ticket prices have remained the same at the club. Do you think, given the nature of Spurs at the moment, without a manager, without a women's manager, football managing director being banned, do you think they had much of a choice on this? Surely they couldn't have any way up the prices.
Unfortunately, they couldn't have no choice, mate. I think if there was a new manager in, a new set of eyes, so to speak, on the club, then you might say, okay, they might up it a little bit because they can see a vision, but not they could. I think they've done the right thing today by freezing the prices. I know a lot of my friends are quite relieved of that because, again, we're in a world now where it is the cost of living crisis, and going to watch Tottenham is a crisis. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think for us, how they dealt with it today, they had to, and coming to what John just said. Tottenham Hotspur Trust, fair play to them for standing up for what they believe and being a voice of the fans and stuff. Yeah, I'm really, really chuffed that they've frozen the ticket prices. But coming to what John was saying, because I've been a One Hotspur member for like 3 years, 2-3 years, it's so easy to get tickets. And I've been to so many games this season. And I think if you've got that season ticket, where my job especially, I'm sure Jar will say as well, I don't know whether I'm gigging from one day to the next. Do you know what I'm saying? So I like the fact that I can pick and choose where and if I want to go. The beauty of being a One Hotspur member is so much better. But let's see what happens. For me, the most important thing at the moment is getting this club in order and getting a manager and getting it sorted ASAP. Because I don't trust for 1 minute that we've got 9 cup finals now, because Tottenham and cup finals don't really go well. So I just hope that the football becomes a little bit more bearable these next couple of weeks.
Yeah, listen, we are going to come on to definitely the style at the moment. Let me come over to you.
Newcastle 2-0 up.
Yep, already results not going our way. But look, it's up to us to do our job. We always say that. John, I want to bring you in. Love to have you back on, Jar. Bless you. You've had to endure some really tough games on Last Word on Spurs. I think probably you enjoy the fact having a break away from actual game analysis and to come and talk about all things Tottenham. Had you known that you were going to be back on after Everton, you might have turned me down. But John, look, fans do have until the 1st of June to renew their season tickets. A much later date, it has to be said, than last year's of April the 29th. But it comes, John, at a time where we've seen so much chaos around the club. No manager, football managing director being banned, no women's manager. I think even Jason said the other day the academy manager are also potentially looking to leave. I mean, the club's in a crisis in itself, John. Could there have been any way in which they could have upped the prices, in your opinion?
Yeah, they're so tone deaf that I was fully expecting. I got my email. I'm a season ticket holder still. Got me email today. You know, and I was surprised because I sometimes wonder. This is a question. I wonder what term Joe Levy and Joe Lewis have. Daniel Levy and Joe Lewis have for Tottenham fans. If they have one, it's probably a pejorative term. But I think they might not even have a term. We might not even have a label. You know, if we do, it's probably a pejorative one. I think there's absolutely no respect there for the supporters. And I think if they thought they could stick the prices up and get away with it, fantastic. But I tell you what, I sent my season ticket back just a few seasons ago at the renewal time with a letter, a complaining letter to Daniel Levy. It was ridiculous, really, as if you're going to get a reply. You know, it was one of those "and furthermore," you know, letters. And so anyway, that was it. People said you're mad. A Tottenham season ticket's like a heirloom. Well, I got invited a couple of years ago. So much for the 70,000 waiting list. Yeah, so much for the big long waiting list. I got offered a season ticket again anyway and took it up. Yeah, so I lost all my points, as John was saying earlier, for the away games. Well, good. I don't want to be at away games watching us get torturous football, giving away, you know, leads the way we do. So no, I think the football club is beyond farce. Every time we come on here, we're talking about how bad it is, and it just goes from bad to worse. In any other industry, an ailing company that was being that kind of mismanaged in terms of its front end operation, which is football, would get the tin tack, you know, would be moved on. But of course, it's not about that. We all know, don't we? We've all come slowly to realise really what it's about. And I'm sure in the eyes of Joe Lewis, Daniel Levy's doing fine. You know, they've been able to use supporters' season ticket money as kind of seed money over the years, you know, and everything else. They've not, as far as I know, they've never put in a huge amount of money themselves as such. So they've been very clever till they get to the point they get the stadium built on basically with a mortgage paying for it, you know. So it's, you know, it's happy days, and they're building a big brand. And the thing you'd want to do if you're building a big brand, you want to have a dependable, you want to have market forces you can depend on. Who would want to depend on the vagaries of football? We don't want to depend on that. So you want to make that brand, the football brand, a mascot brand that isn't terribly important. As long as you're around the top 6, let alone the top 4, just being around the top 6, great. I look around that stadium, there's a lot of tourists there. There has been for years, Premier League anyway, but there's a ton of tourists there, you know. That last game I went to, the Milan game at home, was, you know, loads of sort of out of towner kind of vibe, and it was fine. There were nice people, but none of the other season ticket holders around me had even bothered buying a ticket for that game. That tells you something. That tells you the belief. So let's face it, the chins are on the floor. This has gone on for years. To be fair to Ennick, you know, I've never known Tottenham have good ownership, ever. You know, but the Well family were streets ahead, I think, in terms of caring for the club. You know, look what we had to put up with in 1983 with, you know, when Irving Scholar and people came in, and, you know, what a mess it became then. And then we ended up with Alan Sugar. You know, there's never been owners you could particularly warm to or were real supporters. We've never had someone at Middlesbrough like Steve Gibson, you know. I know from a lot of big fans outside, their attitude will be, what are you complaining about? You're still in the top 4. Well, not after tonight, we won't be. But you're still in the top 4, or, you know, you're up near there. You know, what are you complaining about? But we know what we're complaining about. There's a weakness at the club. It's, you know, we're regularly humiliated. You know, it's been turgid football, you know. And there's one thing about Tottenham, we were a front foot club. We were the original possession club that indirectly influenced Ajax and people, with Vic Buckingham and all that, push and run team 50-51. To dare is to bloody do, That's what we were about. So yes, they're piss takers to the extreme, and I'm actually surprised and slightly heartened. It might mean I'm glad I got time to sweat on it, because I'm really thinking I've got 2 issues in life now. The issues I've got, and I've had a lot of issues in life with coke, with speed, with booze. Only got 2 now. Tottenham and sugar. I like sugary things too much. I've got 2 issues, yeah? And if I can leave the Tottenham one, that if I could take a pill now, the way people used to take that antabuse, when they had booze problems years ago, they'd take that pill, it would make them sick if they drunk, Thank God I didn't need that. I went to bloody AA. Me, done the trick for me all them years ago, kept me sober. But I tell you what, if I could take a pill now that'd make you violently sick, because I get violently sick when I watch Tottenham anyway. Monday night, I'll do a tuned in community project. They all know I'm a Tottenham fan. They're South Londoners. There's no Spurs fans there. I go marching around because I can't bear to sit there watching it. So I march around in a big circuit around South London watching the game. At least I can because I know how it's going to end. Yeah, so people thinking, who's this geezer? It's the 3rd circuit outside our house this geezer's made, moving fast with a phone up in front of me. Yeah, and because it's on Sky, you're 30 seconds behind. So just as I'm thinking the game's coming to a close. Before you see the goal, it flashes up on your screen. Everton key 90 minutes 1-1, and I just thought. Exactly what you're waiting for. The red card had just happened, so just turned the phone in, went in. They all look at me, the people I do the community thing with, like good, bad. It's like I think, oh dear. And then the guy Antony, I do it with, who's a good footballer in his day, said, "What happened tonight then?" I said, "They went down to 10 men." You couldn't see the game. No, couldn't see the game out, mate. Couldn't see the game out. And Mora lunged in with a mental tackle. Come on, run about like a chicken with his head cut off. He leaves this star Juma on the bench, Stellini. What a fucking bad move that is. You let the main guy go, you've got a fucking problem with. Lovely, smashing. You let him go. You keep the number 2 in, who's going to be more loyal to Conte than to Tottenham. Only Daniel Levy. He's an Olympian level bad call merchant. Bad call after bad call after bad call. And I'm fucking sick of it. I had a dream last night that he resigned. And it was wonderful. And I woke up and thought, well, it's all great. And I thought, oh no, it's like some poor bloke in prison, isn't it? Having a dream of being free. What I love some Gulf Arab guy to come in and bike. But of course, you'd have to give them 5 mil, is what I think. You'd have to give them to have them consider letting it go. And Daniel would want to stay there at the helm, I'm sure. Sorry, old man ran over. I'll shut up for a while.
I think John has nicked the rest of my script. I think that's all we've got time for. Thank you so much for joining us. What a show. I think John has summed up exactly how we feel in the course of, what was that, 18 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the other night, I don't like to use these terms, and please don't anyone take offence. Basically, they're a pussy boy team. Tottenham are a pussy boy team, yeah? As weak as a melange. Absolutely fragile, yeah?
Well,
absolutely, got nothing about them.
Can I
no
say,
offence. I don't mean to cause offence to anybody, I know you've got to be careful with the terms used, but they just capitulate. It's absolutely hopeless.
Let me come to you, John.
I laughed, didn't I? I laughed on Monday because I knew it was good. That's how sick I was.
That voice note that Anne sent through, I've got to be honest, that was quite worrying when you're laughing at the results. But John,
it was I was so mad that I had to laugh about it because I saw it coming. I sat there and I saw it coming. Anyway, go on, crack on, Rick. Sorry, mate.
We'll go into that segue right now. John has very kindly taken us into Everton again. Which, to be fair, we were going to touch upon. We won't go into the natural details of the whole game because I think that actually might finish us off. We can't do it twice on Last Word on Spurs. John, I'm going to open up with you. That's all right, John, on this one. We again saw Spurs' inability to kill off games there for all of us to see. I think there's no doubt that by the time this show does go out, Spurs will no longer be in the top 4, as given Newcastle at the moment are winning at West Ham. I don't see that changing at all. Just give me your thoughts, John, on the reaction at Goodison Park and whether you actually expected a different makeup of the side under Cristian Stellini.
Well, I certainly expected us to have a go you know, to be presented with an opportunity. Everton have done well under Dyche, right? Their home form is good. They've beaten Arsenal. They've had a couple other 1-0 wins at home. They've had quite a formula for grinding out 3 points in their home fixtures. But, you know, we had a fantastic opportunity when they were reduced to 10 men to go on and really take the game to them, do some front foot attacking football, get the fans on side for the last 9-10 games, and to really give the fans something to believe in and sing about. And that away end would have been bouncing had we gone on and progressed and showed some front foot attack. And we were presented in a wonderful opportunity, but we did not capitalise on it. It was like the red card only led to us retreating into our shells, and it was more negative, turgid football. And it was just really frustrating, and definitely 2 points dropped. I've got to be honest, it was a real waste. We were presented with a fantastic opportunity that, despite the horrendous season we've been having, to actually go third, albeit briefly, and others having a couple of games in hand. And we just threw it away. The subs made us progressively worse. Sanchez came on and was panicking. You know, you've got Mora, who that was just madness from him to do that. And obviously you do have to feel for poor Danjuma, because, you know, the fact that Lucas has announced he's leaving in the summer, he shouldn't be involved anymore. You know, he's announced he's leaving. Let's build with a future of players that are going to be around. And Danjuma, you know, he's come over, he turned down Everton to have a chance at Tottenham, but we're not giving him the opportunity to show why he should be bought. I still feel very, very sorry for him. I really do. This is a guy that, you know, he's not some unknown player. He scored 6, I think, Champions League goals last season. So, you know, for me, he should have been given an opportunity, and that was a real 2 points drop from Tottenham once again, and continues our horrendous away form. You know, that defeat at Wolves, the 3-0 at Southampton, the 4-1 battering at Leicester, who haven't beaten anybody since. So yeah, really worrying times for Tottenham at the moment.
Yeah, you just said that there, John. Our last 4 away results out bringing you in. Everton 1, Spurs 1, Southampton 3, Spurs 3, Wolves 1, Spurs 0, Leicester 4, Spurs 1. Those teams respectively 13th, 15th, 19th and 20th in the league, and we couldn't beat any of them. So when you think about that, how can you even suggest Spurs should be anywhere near finishing the top 4, which, to be fair, I mean, given once these teams do play their games, I don't think Spurs will be. But, I mean, how concerning is that, Ant, the amount of times that we are quite literally throwing away games at the death? You know, 19, 20 times when you're in the ascendancy, Spurs have been at Southampton and Everton, you see those games out, you have 6 points.
Rick, we've always had this, though, every season. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, John or Jar, or even Rick, stuff. When we have to win, we never do. Okay, and I'm going to do a little bit of a rant. When we have to rely on other teams to do us favours, it shouldn't be like that. We should be concentrating on ourselves. Like tonight, we're going to be 5th by the end of the night, so that's more chasing our tails. You know, come Saturday, Brighton play some good football, and I think that they could do a number on us with the way we're playing, and our confidence is at the bottom. But we don't deserve top 4 if we can't be beating these teams. I'm sorry, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. Okay, you drop a point here and there. That's just Tottenham. That's what we do. But the way we did it on Monday night and the way we did it against Southampton, that's twice now where the opposition have scored in the 90th, 91st minute to nick a point. See the game out. Just see it out. No, we have to make it more difficult for ourselves. And as John said, the minute they went down to 10 men, okay, we should have just gone at them straight away. And when they went down to 10 men, they played better than us. Well, it's not hard, but do you know what I mean? It was like, who's down to 10 men now? Is it them or us? We just went back in our shells. Well, we should have just gone for it. And having 2 shots on target the whole game. How are you supposed to win football matches like that? It's not good enough.
It's not. I mean, look, the mad thing is Spurs have lost almost as many games, 9, as the 3 sides above them, yet they've somehow had the joint 3rd most wins, 15. They've got the highest goal tally in 53, albeit almost 20 fewer than the top 2. And it is mad when you think, for context, that, you know, Spurs have only lost just 2 of their last 9 Premier League matches. But I think, again, you mustn't get away from the fact of the style that Spurs have played in for the majority of the season. You know, I think that's the biggest thing, if I can bring you back in, Jar, is that we all were expecting maybe Stellini to do something different. And I think the fact that he didn't really change anything, I think that was the biggest frustration. But can we expect anything different, Jar? This was Conte's right-hand man. And he even said on the Friday presser beforehand that he disagreed that the football had been poor. So was we really right to think there was going to be any change in the style of football at all?
Well, we all took a shine to this fella. And we done very well in the games against West Ham, Chelsea and City at home. Fantastic. I mean, we're really very solid performances. Didn't give any of them teams a real sniff at goal, you know. So in that respect, it all good well. I knew it was, it was bad and that he was just going to be Conte's man when I saw the lineup. Because what you would want is an indication. What any proper team would be finding a left-sided youngster to come and be trusted from the academy. Yeah, you wouldn't go with Perisic now. He's Perisic Conte signing not good enough. Not we all had wondered what it'd be like in the Premier League, especially defending. He's not got enough about him. He hasn't got enough pace and athleticism to get past people. He is not a bleeding left back. That's obvious. So any team worth its salt would rearrange. It would either bring in a youngster to play left wing back, or it would do something tactically clever and thicken up the midfield. At times I know people said they did look a bit like a 3-5-2. Against Everton because Kulu was coming back a bit, but you got to do more than that, yeah. And this Danjuma. Okay, it's Everton. Well, tell him go out there. He's a professional footballer. All this stuff about they didn't put him on because they knew he'd get a bit of a reception from Everton. Come on, you'd say to him, right, you're going to really get a reception tonight, but you go out and you rise to it, yeah. Take people on, and he should have been played, but at the very least, you should have something going on. And it's just a dead duck, and they'd be better off to let this Stellini go, because they've obviously made a decision after lots of thought to stick with the system now, rather than introduce a new system that might be proved difficult for these. Well, these players just idiot. They're no good anyway, because as Antony was saying, and John has said, you go down to 10. If you are going to sit back, then sit back in a good shape. And actually, they didn't really. They were struggling to make anything, Everton. So if they're going to come at you fiercely, then sit back. But really sit back, sit deep if you've got to. But really, ideally, you should press and go on the front foot. They were kind of trying to do that, but they're just hopeless. Son shouldn't be starting games at the moment. He's absolutely out of form. He's everybody's favourite player at Tottenham. We all love him, and we love Harry Kane. The only one who come out of any credit was Harry Kane, because Harry was determined to get something from the game, and what he done going down holding his face, all this criticism he gets, we'd all do that playing football. Even in a bleeding five-a-side would try and gain an advantage. That's football. So, he was the only one. None of them, Kulu looked absolutely lightweight. You look at the stats, they were just so weak. It was just so easy. The same old Tottenham, weak on the second balls, getting just nudged aside by a team who wanted it more. It's the same old Tottenham. This crept into the Tottenham DNA from the 70s. I've seen it creep in. It's not the last 5 years. It's not the last 10 years. It crept right back in. The game I saw it start with was Derby County at home in an FA Cup replay. We went 3-1 up. They put us under pressure. The crowd got on Spurs back, and we crumbled and got beat 5-3. And it just crept in. And it's come to the thing now where it's just absolutely ludicrous that you put the slightest bit of pressure on this team, as Conte referred to in his rant, they will crumble. The slightest bit of pressure they cannot deal with. We've seen it time and time again. So you're going to really need to, whoever the next manager is kind of immaterial, because you need someone intelligent. The trouble at Tottenham, we've never had a David Dein. David Dein was such a key figure in Arsenal's, development over the years. Involved with George Graham's appointment. In fact, guess who David Dein wanted before they appointed George Graham? Sir Alex Ferguson. So he was barking up the right tree, yeah? And then it inspired, gets Arsene Wenger. And why is David Dein like that? Is he a money person? Is he a businessman? Yes, but primarily to me, Dave, it always looks like a bloke who'd probably wear too much aftershave, but that's another matter, another issue. But he's a football fan. He's an Arsenal fan. And there's not enough. The trouble with Tottenham, there isn't enough football sense there. You need, if only we had a David Dein. Anyone, if it was Antony, John, or you, Ricky, was allowed to be near the club as a consultant, and was listened to, then the club might go somewhere. But I wager there's no fans down. It's corporate nonsense down there. Yeah, the comms are terrible. You know, it's useless. You
It's
know,
like,
totally.
yeah,
So it doesn't matter if you get Julian Nagelsmann, who, by the way, for me, this year's bleeding AVB. Yeah, one of these young guys, just like it used to be with young producers in the music business for 2 years. Yeah, doesn't mean anything. And you need to get the system right in terms of the academy. Something's wrong with our academy. You look at those Arsenal youngsters coming through. What is it, John? John knows youth football, doesn't he? Was it
yeah.
Holt End or Elmend or something where they produce them? It's in Essex, East London borders. They put it there because they know that's where most of the young players are going to come from. And you see something in those Arsenal players. Saka, that Emil Smith Rowe, even though he might not go on to make it Emil Smith Rowe, but the youngsters that are coming through can all play football. They're tactically flexible, but they've really got grit about them as well. They've got, you know, you always every time we lose, you're sent a video of Tottenham players training, and they're doing half-assed core strength work, you know, pulling
That's what I
bands and
always
standing
say.
up. They've got no bloody core strength.
That's what
So
I
they
always
can't be
say,
doing the
John.
exercises right. They've got no core strength.
Yeah.
That little Saka or Arsenal, you can't knock him off the ball. He's a little pest. He's a pest when he hasn't got the ball, you know? And,
Yeah, no, listen, again, it's fascinating stuff you bring to the table there, John, for sure. John, if I can just come around to you, you know, going back to the Everton game if I can. I know we don't really want to talk about Everton, but the nature of it for Spurs, the fact that we've seen us sit back on a number of occasions, that we've elected to, you know, bring the pressure on ourselves. And the game management, John, I have to say, in that last 22 minutes, I mean, to allow an Everton side in the relegation zone to dominate us when we had the goal advantage, we had the extra man advantage, and we should have been really trying to assert some kind of control in that game. You know, Spurs, we had only 3 touches in the opposition box when they went 1-0 up compared to Everton's 13. And they had 22 touches in the final third, with Everton coming in at 79 and them hosting or edging the position at 52% to 48. When I read this stuff, John, I'm baffled as to how this seems to be allowed to happen. It's not the first time. We saw it under... unfortunately, we've seen it under Mourinho as well to some degree. Harry Kane has spoken about the fact that there does seem to be this admittance that we do seem to, as players, naturally fall into this habit of falling back far too easily. Do you think, John, this is all to do with the manager, or do you think this is a mentality issue that does need to be eradicated from the players?
Well, is this a thing that's been built on the players over a number of years? We've now had 3 defensive-minded coaches in a row, starting with Mourinho, coming down to Nuno, albeit briefly, and then into Conte. Now, is it that the players have been training in a style that is so defensive since now 2019 that they no longer have those attacking abilities and instincts in them to go and seize and go and attack teams and go for the jugular? Is it now that we just built in this way where we try and see out results and we do everything not to concede? But we've never had the defenders good enough to play that way. You know, it's all well and good hearing about what Conte did at Inter or Chelsea, or Mourinho did at Chelsea, or whatever, when they had the likes of Carvalho and Terry and Gallas. We've never had defenders of that level in recent years. You know, the closest we had was the partnership of Alderweireld and Vertonghen, but that was during the Poch time. We've never had a solid backbone of defenders. So this insistency on playing with 3 as well, when we haven't got 2 good ones, it is really, really worrying. And that was the thing I was probably looking forward to most about Stellini and Mason coming in, was maybe we'd bring a Papa Sarr into midfield and look to control the game further up the pitch, you know, and have just the 2 centre-backs playing. But for me, this persistence with 3 at the back when we don't have 2 good centre-backs is really worrying. I just wanted to pick up a couple of points Jar said as well, if I can, Rick. You know, you mentioned Arsenal's tail end academy. You know, I was at Hotspur Way 2 weeks ago and watched us beat Arsenal comfortably, play the better football with good homegrown young players. So we do produce the players. It's just about sometimes getting the opportunity for some of these players to come through. We mentioned earlier, you know, is there a left back or left wing back in the academy? For me, that's probably the weakest position we've got in the entire squad. We lost a very good young left back in Jayden Magoma to Southampton last year. He obviously left for financial reasons at the time, and maybe because of a pathway to the first team. But it's certainly an area where Tottenham invested in a new upcoming left back. It's why they wanted a boy called Thierry Small in January, if you remember the reports. And I'm sure they'll look at him again in the summer. But yeah, left back is desperately an area in the academy we need to invest in. And I hope Tottenham can address that in the summer, because, you know, I expect Perisic to move on. I know he's got another year to go on his 180,000 contract, but I think he's the sort of guy that maybe doesn't need the money or won't hold us to ransom or make it difficult. I think if Inter put their hands up and say, look, will you come back? I'm sure him, Tottenham and Inter can agree something. You know, Ryan Sessegnon, for me, has never recovered from those hamstring injuries. He'd be one I'd be looking to move on with 2 years to go on his contract. So we're left with, you know, obviously Destiny's coming in, and I hope that he's given the number 3 shirt. I hope he's given a full pre-season to blend in, because he looks very, very good in the Serie A highlights we're seeing. But I think we do need another left back as well, or a left wing back this summer, certainly.
John, sorry, mate, to cut you there. Sorry.
Yeah.
We had Divine and Mundell on the bench the other night. Now, you should have just give him a run out. Give him a run out at 1-0 up. Who knows what they would have done? All right, it's ifs and buts now and maybes. But as you said, when we started talking, Mora's come out and said, I'm leaving at the end of the season. So give the 2 youngsters a chance. Give even 10, 15 minutes.
But it comes on to my point, though, Ant. We've got Dan Juma on the bench. The guy, I think, was in the Champions League Team of the Year last season. He scored 6 vital goals for them. It's baffling, the non-selection of him. And I will bring it back to that. But just if I can come back to you, John, for a second on this. With Stellini, do we really expect him to change? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, wherever Conte goes, Stellini's going to probably follow him. So he's never going to really, you know, change the playbook really massively when that is all that he's known in terms of Conte's way. And again, I have to add this point that we're asking the players to prove they want to, you know, prove Conte wrong. But when you think about it, John, they've not really been given the chance to breathe because they've still got the existing management team there. So they've not had a chance really to overcome Conte leaving the club, because most of the backroom staff are there. And these players have been used to working that way because Conte has been out for sustained periods of illness where he's been missing anyway. So for the players, really, apart from Conte not being there, nothing has really changed. So when I think about it on reflection, was we right to even really think there's going to be a massive change, John, on this?
Well, I don't know. It's interesting because under Stellini, actually, look, I know people remember the West Ham, Man City and Chelsea games, right? 3 games that we won all of, 3 clean sheets. He also was the manager who took us to Marseille when we went and won, one of our biggest away wins in Europe for me for a number of years. He also managed us in the 3-0 at Preston. So the only game he actually lost was the 1-0 Sheffield United defeat. So I was expecting a little bit more attacking impetus, and I was expecting a bit more exciting football. Yeah, I thought, you know, with Ryan Mason there as well, I was thinking maybe he would exert himself a bit more on Stellini, and I was expecting a bit more. So I was left really underwhelmed and a kind of feeling of depression for the last 9 games. I don't feel any optimism that we're going to go and attack teams. You know, we lost at home to Brighton last year, and they've improved, actually. Huge credit. You know, we're talking about maybe potential managers. Roberto De Zerbi has lost Bissouma in the summer. He lost Cucurella. They've now lost Trossard in January. They just seem to continuously scout new and exciting players.
Lewis Dunk as well, John.
But can I tell you one man, John, that seems to be pivotal there that we allowed to let go, and you might know more about it than I do. Paul Barber. So I've lost Paul Barber. That now, looking on reflection again, I can't quote what that man does day to day, but all I know is that subsequently, since walking into Brighton, he's made them a better football club. They have a succession plan when they lose players. They have a succession plan when they lose managers. And it is massively concerning when you look at when Paul Barber left Tottenham and you look at what Spurs' decision-making has been like over these last 4 or 5 years. Don't tell me it's not a direct correlation in Paul Barber leaving the club to some of the horrendous decision-making that we've made beforehand. There has even been reports, I think, and John, I don't know if you're qualified to say this as well, you know anything about this, but Spurs actually tried at one point to bring Paul Barber back. So I just wonder how much of an influence he's been missed around the club. And some, again, with no disrespect, some might not understand his influence, but he was a very big figure at Tottenham in that boardroom. And I think he's a massively lacking figure right now that we could do with at the football club. Yeah, and actually, Ricky, it brings us nicely to a point Jar mentioned earlier about, you know, Tottenham DNA and people that are in the club that breathe and feel it like we do. It's the issue we've got. Remember Arsenal's Amazon documentary? We saw the cameraman, before they played Spurs, come in there and let it rip like all of us would do. Us, the listeners, every Tottenham fan. You know, that was somebody speaking from the heart. And I worry if we've got enough of these kind of people employed at the club that really drill it into players, what it means to wear the badge, what it means to go out there and play in front of those fans. I don't think we do. You know, we've lost Paul Barber, who was a Tottenham fan, by the way. But, you know, there's some people in the club that brought in some in the summer from up north and other places. I just worry if they have enough Tottenham identity in them that it rubs off in the players and that every day they feel the passion and how we would feel playing for the club. And I do think that's a big issue.
I think at Arsenal, it's drilled into their players from a young age to hate Tottenham, to grow up not liking us, to realise what it means. So when they come out in these games, they're ready. They're those away games for us at the Emirates. Arsenal come out so on top of us from minute one. Atmosphere is loud, and the players understand what it means. I'll never forget. We played them early in the season, and they just signed this guy Lichtsteiner. He was like a right back from Juventus, older chap, right? He had no affiliation to Arsenal before whatsoever. Eric Dyer just scored for us. Went over to the Arsenal fans, giving it the shush and all that. He realised he needed to stoke the fans up, right? So he picked a row with Ali and Dyer, even though he was a sub. He got what it meant. He got them back on side. He got the fans up for it, a bit of fight, a bit of passion. And then they got into us from that point onwards, and we lost the game 4-2. It was like a siege mentality that had been just put into him since joining the club. You must take Tottenham. You must go out there. And I just worry sometimes we have the right characters at the club that put the Tottenham feeling into people when they come and play for the club. I really do.
Listen, guys, I mean, it's interesting points for sure. It really is. What we are going to do, we are going to go for this break of the show, and we are going to turn our attention to Brighton to come on Saturday. As painful as that might be, we're going to take you into this break. For our listeners on audio, you're going to be joined by Charlie Haffenden from We Are Brighton, who gives you his thoughts ahead of the game. And what's going to be a very, very interesting game for some that might see this as being Roberto De Zerbi's audition for the Tottenham Hotspur manager's job. I'm going to come over to Jar, if I can, to start this Brighton preview. Jar, I think this is one of the teams that we would be really, really worried to face in Brighton. They're a good side. They move the ball well. They have a structure. They have an identity. They have a plan. They seem to have a really coherent 11 that all buy into the manager's ethos of what they want to do. How concerning, Jar, is this fixture for you on Saturday?
Oh, they're a top team now. They play great football. They've had great results recently. Who did they beat the other night? They won away, didn't they? They won away in the last game, right?
Yeah, they beat Bournemouth the other night away from home. Yep.
There you go. So you can imagine that's like a derby for them. So South Coast derby. Their tells are really going to be up, and they'll come and they will really fancy the job. They will fancy the job. And if Tottenham's got anything about them, just the senior players and their pride, they will know what they're going to have to do. They can't go toe to toe with Brighton. They're just going to have to, they're going to have to do what they did if they can against West Ham, City, and Chelsea. Defend. Very cut all the space down, sit deep, so there's not much space to come through the middle. Push them around the sides and defend the box, which they did well, to be fair, in those 3 games. And you know what? Wouldn't it be nice? We know Sonny's not going to have a great game. He'll start probably, won't have a great game. Kane's dependable. Kulu isn't fantastic at the moment, but if you're going to play 3-4-3, I guess you're going to start with Kulu. But I don't know if Richarlison might be fit, but start Danjuma. And of course, the big, that's as John said, we haven't got a young, good left-sided player. Well, you can't start with Perisic. You're going to have to do something else. Put Tanganga there, even. I think he played on. Did he not play on the left once against Middlesbrough in the cup and did well? Maybe. I mean, he's not gonna. He hasn't got a future at Tottenham, but you're going to have to try a few other things, for God's sake. You're going to have to try a few other things. You might just want to, even put, try Danjuma there. Even, you're going to have to try something because Perisic's, pretty hopeless. The only position I could see Perisic fulfilling and possibly quite good would be second striker. But obviously that's not going to happen because of the players we've got. He's a canny little player, and in around the box he could be a great number 10. A great number 10 second striker, and would put a shift in. So no, you have to think. And this Zerbi, why would he go to Tottenham? Why would you go to Tottenham? He'll have the choice of big clubs. I don't see him coming to Tottenham. No manager worth their salt who's thinking of their career path will go to Tottenham, and unless it's a Brendan Rodgers now, whereas he would have turned us down 2 or 3 years ago. Brendan Rodgers now would be would probably take it. Maybe Pochettino, if he doesn't get Real Madrid, would possibly take it. But we're looking ridiculous We're looking ridiculous. The fact we were still in the top 4 until very recently was like one of those freak mathematical equations you get. You know, every now and then you'll see on Twitter a freak mathematical equation that doesn't make any sense. And it's just a freak mathematical. It isn't going to last. I think we probably won't even get Europa League this year. You know, I think we're really fold. So let's just see if they've got anything about them where they can just have a bit of fire in their bellies and know what they've got to do, and just be the underdogs going into it, playing at home and get stuck. Because if we go a goal or 2 down, the crowd are not going to stick with them. It's going to get very, very ugly.
Yeah.
You know,
I think that is the biggest concern on that point, as you mentioned there, Jar, that if Spurs were to go a goal down, the atmosphere in that stadium is going to massively, well, it's already going to be fairly flat, in my opinion. I just feel that, you know, you look at the nature of the ticket take up for the game. I mean, I don't need you guys to obviously see this as well. There's a huge amount of tickets on the exchange where, again, there's a great opportunity there to go and support the team. And again, I have to make this point that everybody's got their own right to feel how they want about the club. Everybody's got their own right to do what they feel they want to do in terms of however they want to, support the team, back the team, make their feelings known. I think, again, we make that point on Last Word on Spurs. It's each to their own. There is no right, there is no wrong. Of course.
I won't be there. I'm going to Wells with my missus for the weekend. I didn't go to the to the Forest game. You know, I didn't even bother with that. You know,
yeah.
And who did we play at Forest since Forest at home? I didn't bother. Can't even remember the game, but didn't bother with it. So, you know. I might go to Bournemouth, you know, but me missus, she said, we can go to Wells that weekend. I said, Tottenham's playing. And she knows, oh, right, okay, then, well, maybe go to London. I said, no, actually, you know what? Book it. Fuck 'em.
Get away from it.
Yeah, I'm not, so I you know, and you know what? You struggle to find anyone who'll take your ticket off you right now.
It's got to that point.
Giving it away.
Yeah.
It's really, it's crap. You know, it really is very, very poor. And they'll come. They're a canny team. They can score goals. You know, and they're going to really have to show what they're about, Tottenham. But it really is. If they completely fold at this point. Oh, wonderful! I just got a message from me, missus. I owe £6,000 in VAT. How lovely. Anyway, how nice. Everything's feel-good factor at the moment. It's so nice.
Absolutely. And that season ticket renewal money's coming out soon, John. That'll be coming.
Yeah. Oh, mate. You know, it's just everything's unbelievable. But you know, it's very poor. You know, stranger things have happened. They're just going to have to really show. Any other top team would go out there and really show what they're about, and just for their own professional pride. But there's something really terminally wrong. Everything's wrong. None of the dots join up. It's like John's talking about this good academy. All these top teams will have good academy players. Anyone can go out and recruit really good players who on their day, you know, can play well. But to find players who can grow up secure in a system, you know, that's really good coaching. And that has to happen at a club where the whole thing's, there's consistency from start to finish. Absolutely. And they're baptized into men's football in the right way, where they don't lose, they keep their technique going. And too many with Tottenham players just fall by the wayside. You know, they come in, they can't handle men's football, you know. So he got an atrocious record. And then, you know, as Antony mentioned, this Divine guy, by the way, who I think he was out of Wigan, but I think Wigan's youngsters normally come out. My boy was at Wigan for years at their academy. And they're normally out of Liverpool or Everton. They go to Wigan. The ones who are rejected from there end up at Wigan. And he's out of Liverpool. He'd be out of Merseyside. He would have relished, I'm sure, to play against Everton, and would have a bit of fire in his belly. And is a good John. Again, John will know better than us, because I know he's really studies the youth football. You know, he looks like he's got a gold in him. The boy, he's a creative player. So it just drives me mad. You know, at the moment, you know, that there you got somebody who's. I can understand why you're not going to bed any old academy player. You know, because people often think the academy, you know, a lot of fans always want to see the academy players, but often, especially for the strikers, they're just not up to men's football. They need to go out on the correct kind of loans. But it's Divine to me. Correct me if I'm wrong, John. Looks to me like he's worthy of a first team start. Am I missing something?
No, not at all. I think he's always been one where, had he been presented with an opportunity he would very much look the part and be ready. He's got the mentality to play at that senior level, in my opinion. As you say, he can be creative, he can score goals, but best of all, he's very tenacious. He puts himself about. I remember an under-21s game when he was 16, I think, coming up against Danny Drinkwater while he was at Chelsea. Now, Danny Drinkwater had been kicking him the whole game. Danny Drinkwater then took him out, basically. Alfie Devine at 16 had no fear. He confronted him straight away, head to head, and let him know that I'm not afraid of you. I'm not intimidated by you. So he's got that senior mentality about him. As you said, actually, he came out of Liverpool's academy. I think he left there when he was 12 or 13 and went to Wigan. And he would have relished the opportunity. But I am sure he will feature before the end of the season. He trains every day with the first team now. They rate him very, very highly. They let him know that he's got a long-term contract at the club till 2027 on decent money as well. So I'm sure we will see Alfie. And I think I get the impression that when he does play, fans will think, oh, I like this, and he'll continue to be involved in the first team.
And I think with Devine, we've always had. He's saying when I've seen him glimpses, he's got something, as you said, John. He's got something about him. Do you know what I mean? He'll take he's got no fear, and that's what we lack. We lack someone with a bit of fear to take the game by the bollocks and go, I'm going to have a little go today.
Yeah,
we haven't. We've got blokes that just go in themselves and just moan that they're training too hard.
Sorry.
Can I go on, John? Do you want to come in there?
I want to say one more thing, because it's something we haven't really talked about, and that's we're talking about these young academy players and when are they going to be presented an opportunity, and Danjuma as well. But when are we going to question the likes of Son and Kulevetsky, who are just not performing? We don't want to mention them because they've done good things in the past. But this is why I wanted to.
But this again, John, is what I'm keen to know from you, John. Ahead of Brighton, we've got so many players that are off form at the moment. You mentioned Kulusevski. Obviously, we know we've got the situation with regards to Son right now. I just wonder, Danjuma is waiting for his opportunity, waiting for his chance. I think the big question is, if you're Stellini, what do you change on Saturday? What do you change to give supporters hope that they're going to be behind them? Because I agree with what Jar said at the opening intro, that as soon as that team dropped for Everton, I think fans felt, well, nothing's really changed there. We've picked a very much Conte 11. And I'll be honest, even watching the game, you would have thought Conte was still managing the team. I even had conspiracy theories in work this week that Conte was still managing it in Italy. That's the most maddest thing I heard. So what do you want to see, John, change on Saturday from Tottenham for Brighton?
I think we'll have to see some natural changes, because obviously Lucas is suspended, so that's one player out of the squad. I don't know if Richarlison is back fit. So we're probably looking at another academy boy stepping up onto the bench. I suppose the next one, if you're looking at forward kind of players, would be Jamie Donnelly as well, to be on the bench. So you never know. You never know how the game's going. Maybe they'll look to, but I would like to see Danjuma given a start. I really would. I think he's proved himself last year at Villarreal. He's not some unknown quantity from a league we've never heard of. He did good things in La Liga last year, did good things in the Champions League. I'd really like to see him given a chance in place of one of Son or Kulevetsky. I just don't think either of them have performed. So that would be a positive start. And I just want Tottenham to go on the front foot. I really do. Maybe bring in, Papa Sarr in midfield. Skip and Sarr in the midfield in the San Siro were fantastic. We've not really seen much of that. I think we need something fresh, something exciting. So let's change the lineup a little bit, because at the moment it's just so turgid and boring.
Let's get a prediction from you, John. What are you going to go for prediction-wise?
I think Brighton are really good. I've got to be honest with you. They've got players that I would love at Tottenham. Young Evan Ferguson's looking like a real prospect. They've got Costa in the midfield. Alex McAllister looks very good. The Japanese winger. They're full of good, exciting players, actually. So they'll come and they'll stick it on us. And if the atmosphere is going to be negative and they're not going to be behind the team, if we fall a goal behind, I do really, really worry. But, I'm going to say, look, we've got Harry Kane, so we've always got a chance. Probably, 1-1 draw, 2-2 draw, something like that.
That's for you being very honest, John. I don't think you've ever come on in and predicted a non-Spurs win. So that tells you anything about where Spurs are at the moment. Matoma, like you said there, John, fabulous player. Absolutely fabulous player.
Playing with no fear. Playing with no fear.
And again, I think Brighton are in a position where they could also, they could be right on our coattails a win with a couple of games in hand as well. They're on our coattails for sure in terms of that battle for top four. And let's come over to you. Tell me what you want to see different in terms of that lineup and selection from Stellini at the weekend.
I want to see a bit of attacking football. I want to see 4 at the back.
Can I just pick up on that, Anne? You're sitting there saying you want to see attacking football. Yeah. Do you genuinely think there's going to be a massive change in terms of the dimension and style of the way Tottenham are playing from Monday night? Because I don't see it happening.
Not at all. You've asked me a question. What I would like is to go 4-2-3-1.
But maybe I should ask
it
you,
ain't gonna happen.
what do you like and what do you think will happen?
What do I like? What about this club now?
As in, what would you like to see on Saturday compared to what you think would happen?
I'd like to see us play with no fear, and I'd like to see us not crumble. I think I don't hold much hope. I'm going because I bought my ticket ages ago, so I'm going. But I just think if we go 1-0 down, it's going to be toxic, boy. It's going to be toxic, and I think I would just like to see some new, fresh faces for these last 9 games to be given a chance. As John said, the Danjumas of this world. Why get him if he's leaving in a couple of weeks?
Yeah,
after the season's ended. Do you know what I mean? It's not worth it.
But as Paddy says here, we're being told it's a process. But yet the guy's only got 9 games left. Process.
He's been there since January, so like he's only played 1 game, or 10 minutes of another game. It's not good enough. You're sticking with the same people, and we need to get out of our heads that we've come to realise now that certain players who had a good season last season are not performing this season. So we've got to understand that they have to be dropped. I'm not going to name names because everyone knows who I'm talking about. There's 2 or 3 players there that are simply not good enough. You know, Kulusevski didn't go to the World Cup. So it's not like he's knackered or he's tired. He's just not been great.
Yeah.
But, you know, imagine me saying I'll drop Kulusevski. Everyone's going to go, oh, no, you can't say that because he assisted in 20 games ago.
You have to question, you know, the nature of Son's form. I mean, Son, to me, I hate to say this.
Good enough this season.
I hate to say this. Son reminds me of the Dele Alli at the end of his tenure, where he's completely fallen off a cliff. And I don't want to write Son off because he's shown only from 7 or 8 months ago, this guy won the Golden Boot. So I would like to think it's just a one-off season, and he will come back stronger. And I put it down to maybe the coaching and the way we're being set up to play that might be having a detrimental effect on his game. But again,
then you look at Sonny for South Korea; he's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Again, is this back to the system that these players are being deployed to play? We shall see.
It is.
And let's get your prediction out. We're going to go 4 ahead of Brighton.
Oh man. I don't know. I think we'll go 1-0 down, and it's just what Tottenham will turn up. So I'm gonna leave it open.
Okay, leaving it open.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand.
I ain't going to sit and go, oh, we're going to play some great football because I don't trust it. I don't believe it.
I can honestly say I think people were actually dreading the game, which is actually massively concerning. But look, that's the nature where we find ourselves in. John, you kind of gave us the obituary before we even started here about this game against Brighton. So I'm intrigued to know, Jar, from you, what do you want to see different on Saturday?
I can tell you what I'd like to see. Right, okay. I would actually just think, okay, we're going to have to. We haven't got a really creative player. You're not going to start with Divine. You just know that. But just maybe they might give the likes of Danjuma a run out. Why not put him on the left wing back position? Because you've been playing with a guy that couldn't fucking defend anyway. You have a talk with Holbio, who plays more on that left hand side of the 2 with Skip, and you just say, look, you're going to have to cover for this boy. But the way we play, we're supposedly going to stick our wing backs right up the pitch anyway. So put a left-sided guy, tell him to attack as well and have fun. Have Porro really wide. You've got no options there anyway, you know, because everyone else is injured. Get him, you know, get him wide. Richarlison, if he's fit, start with him, and have Kane drop in deep. And I would actually drop Sonic as well, to be fair, you know. And you're just looking to get balls in, Richarlison lead the line, and give Harry Kane a completely free role, you know, which he tends to have nowadays anyway, to be honest. And if you did something a bit radical like that, you know, just a bit radical, you'd have a chance. But I don't think they will. It'll be the same turgid, bloody starting line with that, you know. If you did that, you'd have a chance to win the game 3-1 or something. You know, you could surprise them a bit with the vigour that you go about them. You know, Kane spreading the ball out wide. Richarlison can be a proper battering ram. That guy, he can bully centre halves and do something. You know, and you can be getting balls into him. You know, so you're basically just playing. You're dropping Kane back into midfield a lot more. You know, from that position, and to thicken the midfield up, which he kind of does anyway. Richarlison through the middle, which we haven't really done with Kane alongside him that I can. Maybe I'm wrong, and as I say, I'd be having the two wing backs push right up. You know, I'd have
John,
them
I'm
push
going to
right
ask you
up
two
there.
quick questions, John, before we close it. John, we'll go around and ask this. John, well, first of all, obviously, the prediction for the weekend. What are you going to go for in terms of the prediction, John?
Me?
That's you, John. What are you going to go for?
My heart as ever tells me 3-2 to Tottenham in a thrilling game. My head tells me 2-0 to Brighton, but it'd just be a standard, easy 2-0 victory to them.
Okay, and final question, Jar. Who do you want as the next Spurs manager?
Yeah, again, it's a difficult question because, as I've said, you know, it kind of makes it's like saying, you know, here's a sinking liner. You know, who do you think should captain the sinking ship? You know, who'd be good? Well, it's fucking sinking, so it doesn't really matter who you get. But I guess I'd like to see somebody with a, you know, I guess it's down to a project manager, somebody who's, you know, not with, we can't get another big, you won't get a big elite manager now anyway. They're far too canny, these guys. They're like politicians. So I guess, you know, it wouldn't be Brendan Rodgers, that's for sure. Maybe the Frankfurt guy, you know, and he does play free at the back, you know. I always thought that Fonseca, you know, might have, you know, it intrigued me. It didn't intrigue anyone else. Everyone else thought it was an awful choice, you know. But maybe him, or maybe, you know, maybe one of the young British, maybe Potter could still do a job there, you know. So Potter, you know, the guy from Dortmund, all these elite managers like Julian Nagelsmann, forget it. There's no way they, or the guy Zerbi at Brighton. You wouldn't go to Tottenham. It's a big ailing thing. Why would you go there? Why? When you could go to a better run club, you wouldn't do it. So
John,
it was one of them kind of guys anyway, you know.
John, it's always fascinating, mate. Thank you so much for your time. We've loved having you on this season. Poor blokes have to go through so many difficult nights on the post-match games. It's always to bring him on at a time when Spurs aren't depressing him on the pitch, but they always are. At least it's not straight after a game. So, John, mate, love to be back on. Thank you so much. John, I want to come over to you next if I can, just to close this. So, actually, two questions if I can on this one, John. Will Cristian Stellini be here at the end of the season? That's the first one. Number two, who would you like to see Spurs appoint come the end of the season if it's not going to be immediate?
Yeah, I think Cristian Stellini will certainly still be here till the end of the season. I think they've made their mind up on that. So, you know, they've made their bed and we'll see what happens. But in terms of managers, for me, Jar's not going to be happy with me, but he ruled out two of my three choices. For me, you know, Poch, probably my first choice. Nagelsmann, I think the club should be interviewing. I think he's a really exciting, young, progressive manager. And my third choice would be asking the question of Roberto De Zerbi. You know, I've heard that we can't attract a manager, and why would he come from Brighton? Well, look, do you want to come and live in London? Do you want more money? I still think we're an attractive proposition if sold correctly.
Interesting. And let's close it with you, mate. Same kind of questions to you. Do you think Stellini will be here come the end of the season if we've got more Goodison Park to come on Monday night? And who do you want in the hot seat come the summer?
I think I'd just come on to what John's saying. I think he will be, because the club doesn't know what's going on at the moment. You see Chelsea today interviewing Enrique, and he looks like he's going to get the job. They've sacked the interim manager and got Lampard in. They've moved quick. Do you know what I'm saying? For me, who do I want in? I don't know. Do you go back to Poch? Maybe. Is he enough to keep Kane? I don't know. Probably. Nagelsmann, exciting manager, but again, why would you go from Munich to come to Tottenham and ruin your reputation? I don't know. It's so tough now. It's so tough, and I'm just sitting there going, who's going to come here now, knowing that what Conte has said with these players that we've got, unless they don't move on. I also can't implement their own plan.
I also do think just to close it, you know, at the moment, how can we even be, you know, talking to managers in relation to a situation where you've got the managing director of football that is banned, and ultimately any manager that wants to come to Tottenham, they've got to know what the plan is. They've got to know what the situation is. They've got to know who they're reporting into. They've got to know the structure of the club. And I don't know how they can do that when they don't know who the manager's going to be and who the sporting director's going to be. I just don't know how they can do that.
I know. I'd love exactly. It's a mess. I'd love De Zerbi. I think from what I've seen him this season has been brilliant. Watching Brighton, but on Slot, Arnie Slot's getting a lot of mentions. Don't know much about him, so I can't sit here and go, I'm a Dutch football expert.
Yeah,
but
I think
a lot of people I've spoken to say that he does play that front foot press football.
Only a personal opinion. I don't think this will be solved quick. I think they've got to wait to see what happens with Paratigi's current appeal and how that does pan. But listen, we will keep you in data as always on the last one on Spurs as to what happens. We've been joined by the brilliant John Wenham over at Lilywhite Rose. John, thank you so much, mate. Pleasure having you back on last one on Spurs.
Absolute pleasure. Great to be back on with you boys. And hopefully, then I'm on next week. We're talking about a win against Brighton. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, mate. Looking forward to having you back twice in a week. We're blessed. And, mate, lovely to have you back on. Pleasure as always, bud. We'll see you very shortly.
I'll see you very soon, Rick Star. Thanks, John. Cheers, Jar. Always
looking forward to it. Jar, thank you so much, mate. Again, a massive congratulations of all of us here on the newborn, and hopeful that the little one will not be put in front of Spurs anytime soon, which you tell me he's not going to be, thank God.
I've already done it with my 2 boys as Spurs fans, and that's ruined their lives already. I deeply regret it, you know. Ricky, John, Antony, lovely to see you, lads. Have a great night.
You too. Listen, from all of us here at Last One on Spurs, thank you to our watching audience. Guys, keep safe, keep well. We're back with you after Brighton on Saturday night. And as always, come on, you Spurs.